They said he found love, but no one asked what did he lose to have it. The belated regrets of Prince Harry, a man who traded royalty for love, a tragedy of a lonely soul in his own home. Monte Carlo at night exudes a deceptive beauty, a polished facade built on wealth where loneliness is poured into crystal glasses and masked by the soft glow of chandeliers. Harry sat by the slightly open window, a cold breeze carrying the scent of sea salt brushing across his bearded cheek. In his hand, the whiskey bottle had warmed to his touch but remained unopened. The laptop in front of him replayed their wedding video. He didn't watch it, but he could hear every sound clearly: the applause, the music, the cheers. Prince Harry, Duchess Meghan. A radiant smile forced to the point that now he felt ashamed for ever believing in it. In the video, his face was full of hope, while now the darkness around him was so thick that even the light from the screen couldn't pierce his bloodshot eyes raw from sleepless nights. On the table lay an old photograph, three figures, Diana, William, and him, taken in the Kensington Gardens years ago. The photo had yellowed, its edges singed. Not because someone had set it alight, but because he, in a moment of reckless anger during a heated argument with Meghan, had left it too close to the fireplace. He had thought of burning the past, but only a corner caught fire. Like him, half burned, not destroyed, but no longer whole. London, 2016. The meeting memories surged unbidden, crashing over Harry like a torrent, pulling him back to that dreary London afternoon. In a room thick with the scent of strong liquor and expensive perfume, he saw Meghan not because she was dazzling, but because she didn't try to stand out. Meghan stood by the window, a glass of red wine in hand, her head tilted as she listened to someone speak, but her eyes scanned the crowd like a sentinel. When those eyes met Harry's, they didn't flinch. There was no flustered deference, no awe, just a direct gaze as if she had known him before. Not from the headlines, but as if she had lived inside his skin. "Do you know what makes people uneasy about you?" Her voice was low, devoid of feigned innocence. "What's that? You want freedom, but you don't know what to do with it if you had it." Her words struck Harry speechless. No one in the palace had ever dared say such a thing. No journalist had ever touched that truth. Yet she, an American actress without lineage or ties, had stripped him bare with a single sentence. Loving Meghan felt like floating in a sweet illusion every morning, a release. No press conferences, no parades, no garish red uniforms. They cooked breakfast together, jogged through the morning, missed, laughed hysterically when paparazzi caught them off guard. In her eyes, he was no longer the spare standing beside William, no longer Diana's son. He was her Harry. But sometimes at night, when Meghan slept soundly beside him, Harry lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering, does she love me or what I represent? Am I the man she needs or the key to unlocking an ancient door? The crystal chandeliers in the drawing room of Kensington Palace sparkled like stars, but the air inside was as cold as a winter's day. Harry sat in an armchair, his hand gripping a glass of whiskey, his gaze drifting absently toward the window. Outside, the hum of London's traffic was a steady reminder that the world kept moving while his own life seemed to be crumbling. Meghan entered the room impeccably dressed, but with exhaustion etched across her face. She had just returned from a tense meeting with the palace's press team. "They told me to restrain myself again," she said, her voice laced with bitterness. "Restrain. I'm an actress, an activist, not a puppet for them to pull strings." Harry looked up, forcing a smile to soothe her. "You don't have to do everything they want, Meg. Just be patient." Patient? Meghan let out a humorless laugh. "Harry, don't you see? They don't want me here." Kate looks at me like I'm a stain on her perfect dress. And the staff, they whisper behind my back, calling me an outsider. A sharp pang shot through Harry's chest. He knew she wasn't wrong. Since the wedding, he had noticed the guarded glances, the veiled remarks from palace staff. Kate, with her elegant poise and soft-spoken demeanor, never seemed to truly welcome Meghan. Their meetings often ended in strained silence, like a chess game neither wanted to lose. "I'll talk to Kate," Harry said, trying to keep his voice steady. "She doesn't mean any harm. It's just, things here take time." Time? Meghan stepped closer, her eyes blazing like fire. "Harry, don't you get it? This isn't about time. They don't want me, a black woman, an American, someone who dares to speak her mind, disrupting their perfect little world." The door swung open abruptly. William strode in, still in his pristine suit, his eyes sharp as a blade. I could hear the shouting from the hallway. He said, his voice low but commanding. "What's going on, Harry?" Harry stood, the whiskey glass nearly slipping from his hand. "Nothing you need to worry about, Will. This is between me and Meghan." William crossed his arms, his gaze shifting from Harry to Meghan, then back to Harry. "Is it because I heard my sister-in-law just made a senior staff member cry in a meeting, and now she's screaming about the whole world being against her?" Meghan took a step forward, chin raised. "I'm not screaming. I'm telling the truth. And if you must know, yes, I'm not welcome here. But I'm not surprised, William. You and Kate have made that very clear." William's brow furrowed, but he didn't look at Meghan. His eyes locked onto Harry as if she weren't in the room. "Harry, we need to talk. Alone." Meghan let out a scornful laugh. "Oh, of course. The princes need to whisper among themselves, and I should know my place and disappear right." She turned on her heel, her curly hair whipping through the air, and stormed out the door, slamming shut behind her. Harry felt his blood boil. He turned to William, his voice trembling with anger. "What the hell was that? You have no right to talk to her like that." "No right." William stepped closer, his voice dropping but heavy with authority. "Harry, you're my brother. I've watched you grow up, watched you struggle with the press, with our mother's shadow. But now you're letting a woman manipulate you, turning your back on your family." "Manipulate?" Harry roared, fists clenched. "What do you know about me? Will, you who's always been loved, always chosen? Have you ever had to live, feeling like you're just the spare existing only to prop you up?" William froze, but his eyes didn't waver. "You think I wanted this? You think I enjoy living in this cage with the world watching my every move?" He paused, taking a deep breath, then continued, his voice icy. "But I don't run away. I don't abandon my family for a woman who only worships you to serve her own ambitions." William's words hit like a punch to the face. Harry's heart felt like it was shattering. "What did you say?" he growled. "You think I love her because she worships me? You think I'm that stupid?" William stared straight into Harry's eyes, unflinching. "I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm saying you're blind. Do you love her, or do you love the way she makes you feel important?" The air between the brothers turned to ice. Harry felt heat surge to his face, his hands trembling. He wanted to lunge at William, to scream that he wasn't the weak child the world thought he was. But instead he stood there, breathing heavily, the world collapsing beneath his feet. "Get out," Harry said, his voice hoarse. "Get out of here, Will." William looked at him for a moment longer, a flicker of pain in his eyes, then turned and left. The door closed, leaving Harry in a deafening silence. He sank into the chair, head bowed, hands covering his face. Outside in the hallway, he heard Meghan's footsteps, but she didn't return. That night, as Meghan held him in the dark, she whispered, "We don't belong here, Harry. We need to leave." Harry hesitated, then nodded faintly. In his mind, a thick fog was gathering, clouding his path forward. Perhaps Meghan was his light guiding him through this storm. The meeting room at Sandringham felt like a tomb. Ancient portraits on the walls with stern faces of long-dead monarchs seemed to judge Harry with their unblinking eyes. He sat at the far end of the long table, hands clasped tightly, trying to suppress a tremble. Across from him was King Charles, his face, weathered eyes heavy with sorrow but unyielding. Beside him stood William, shoulders squared, his gaze sharp enough to pierce through his younger brother. The air was suffocating, broken only by the ticking of a wall clock, counting down to an inevitable explosion. "If you love me, choose me, not the throne that will never be yours." Meghan's words echoed in Harry's mind, both sweet and agonizing. He took a deep breath, lifting his head to face his father. "I want to leave," he said, his voice low but resolute. "I can't keep living like this, as a puppet, a spare shadow." Charles's brow furrowed, his aged hands trembling slightly on the table. "Harry," he said, his voice deep like waves crashing against cliffs. "Do you understand what you're giving up? You are part of this family, this history. You are betraying your mother's legacy." The words stabbed Harry's heart. He shot to his feet, the wooden chair scraping against the marble floor. "Mother, you dare mention her?" His voice broke raw with anger and pain. "She died because of this gilded cage, because of the press, because of the rules you defend. Do you think she'd want me to live my life as a puppet?" William slammed his hand on the table, the sound reverberating through the room. "Enough, Harry," he shouted, his face flushed. "You don't get to use her to justify your selfishness. You think you're the only victim here? We're all trapped in this cage, but we don't run away like cowards. Coward Harry roared, stepping closer to William the brothers, mere inches apart. You call me a coward for wanting to live my own life. You who's never had to live in anyone's shadow, never been called the unnecessary second son. William stood tall and commanding, but a flicker of pain crossed his eyes. You think I don't know how you feel I'm your brother Harry. I've tried to protect you, to keep us together. But you're letting her manipulate you, turning your back on everything. Meghan isn't manipulating me, Harry shouted, his voice echoing through the room. She's the only one who makes me feel like I'm worth something. Not you, not father. Not this royal family. Charles raised a hand signaling for calm, but his voice trembled with anger. Enough, he said, his eyes locked on Harry. You may leave, but don't think you can come back. If you choose her, you forsake everything, your title, your honor, your family. You will no longer be one of us. Charles's words were a verdict. Harry felt his chest constrict. He looked at his father, then at William, searching for a glimmer of hope, a sign that they still saw him as family. But in their eyes, he saw only distance and disappointment. I don't want to be a puppet anymore, Harry said, his voice hoarse. He turned and walked out, each step dragging a collapsing world behind him. As the door closed, he heard William call his name, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. On the flight to America, Harry sat by the window, watching thick clouds obscure the English sky. Meghan held his hand, but her touch was cold, lacking the warmth of their early days. We'll start over, she whispered. We'll be free. But as the plane landed in California, Harry felt an emptiness in his heart. Freedom, it turned out, wasn't the radiant sunlight or the waves crashing on the shore. It was a nameless loneliness. California's sunlight was blindingly bright, filtering through palm trees and gleaming off the white walls of their Montecito mansion. Harry stood by the window, gazing at the lush garden where roses bloomed like promises of happiness. But to him, it was all a perfect facade, hiding the growing void in his heart. This wasn't the freedom he'd dreamed of when he left England. This was a new prison, one without bars but filled with unanswered questions. Who am I without my title? Meghan, in contrast, had found her stage. She moved through the opulent rooms with a queen's confidence, her phone buzzing constantly with calls from producers, sponsors, and media stars. She was building an empire, fashion brands, TV shows, charity projects bearing her name. But each step she took seemed to pull her further from Harry. Dinners together became rare, replaced by late-night meetings and trips he wasn't invited to. I'm not used to this place, Harry said one evening, as they finally sat together on the sofa. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if afraid to shatter the rare moment of calm. Everything. It's too different. No protocols, no press, but also no me. Meghan looked up from her iPad where she was reviewing a business plan. Harry, you need time, she said, her tone gentle but tinged with impatience. We left to live authentically. You need to find something for yourself. Something for myself, Harry gave a hollow laugh, his smile not reaching his eyes. Meg, my whole life was defined by my family, my title. Now what am I? A man sitting in this house waiting for you to come back from meetings? I don't even understand. Meghan set the iPad down, her eyes narrowing. What are you saying, that you regret choosing me? No, Harry stood pacing to the window, his fist clenched. I don't regret choosing you, but I don't know who I am here. I have no role, no purpose. You have the whole world in your hands, and I'm just an extra in your play. The air in the room grew heavy. Meghan rose, her silk dress rustling, her eyes flashing with anger. An extra, Harry, what do you think I wanted? I gave up everything, my career, my friends, my life in America, to step into that gilded cage with you. And now you dare say I've made you irrelevant? I didn't say that, Harry shouted, turning to face her. But look, Meg, you're out there shining, celebrated by the world. And me, I'm sitting here, watching you become someone I don't even recognize. All you need is an audience, and I'm just a part of your performance. His words ignited a fire. Meghan stepped back, her face paling, but her eyes sharp as knives. And you, she shot back, her voice trembling with fury. You love the feeling of being pitied, of playing the victim. You left the royal family because you wanted freedom, but now you just sit there whining about losing the cage you hated. What do you want from me, Harry? to stay home and coddle you like a child. Each of Meghan's words was a cut tearing through Harry's last shred of faith in their love. He stood there breathing heavily, his heart constricting. "Did you ever love me?" he whispered, his voice breaking. "Or did you just love the idea of saving a lost prince?" Meghan didn't answer immediately. She looked at him, a flicker of pain in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold resolve. "If you have to ask," that she said evenly, "then maybe you don't believe in this love either." She turned and left the room, her heels clicking on the wooden floor like hammer strikes to Harry's heart. He sank onto the sofa, head bowed, hands covering his face. Outside, California's sunlight blazed, but in Harry's heart there was only darkness. For the first time, he wondered, was this love real or just a dream I conjured for myself? The Montecito night was eerily silent. No roar of London traffic, no whispers from palace staff, just the wind rustling through palm trees outside the window telling a story Harry didn't want to hear. He sat in his study, the desk lamp casting light on his weary features. Before him was an old photograph framed in silver. Him and William, two blonde boys grinning in Kensington's gardens beside their mother Diana, her smile like sunlight. Harry held the photo, his fingers tracing her face. "What would you say, Mum, if you were here?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, as if speaking to the darkness around him. "Would you tell me to keep going, or that I was wrong to leave?" He set the photo down and opened his laptop, the screen glowing with an unfinished email. The subject, "Sorry." He had rewritten it dozens of times to William, to his father, King Charles. Clumsy, pained words. "I didn't want things to end like this. I just wanted to be myself. Please understand." But every time he hit send, only silence answered. His inbox remained empty, a reminder that he had been erased from his old world. Harry stood and stepped onto the balcony, the cool night air brushing his face. He looked up at the sky, the stars twinkling as if mocking his loneliness. In his mind, voices began to rise, a chorus of doubt and self-reproach. "Who are you, Harry?" one voice asked, cold and sharp. "A prince. No, you gave that up. A husband. But Meghan doesn't look at you like before. A son, a brother. You turned your back on them." "Shut up," Harry muttered, gripping the railing. But the voices didn't stop. "Shirkiwa, what is freedom to you? A mansion in California. A wife busy building her own empire. You traded everything for what? A name no one remembers, a person no one needs." His chest tightened. He wanted to scream, to smash something, to banish the darkness consuming him. But instead he stood there, eyes blurring. A tear rolled down his cheek, hot and bitter. He couldn't recall the last time he cried. Perhaps it was when his mother died, when he was a boy standing behind her coffin under the pitying gaze of millions. Harry returned to his desk, took a sheet of paper, and began to write not an email, but a handwritten letter as his mother used to do. He wrote to William, his scrawl, desperate. "Will, I don't know where to begin. I just want to say I miss you. I miss the days we were just two kids, not princes, not enemies. If you read this, please reply. One line would be enough." He folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope, but didn't send it. Deep down, he knew there would be no reply. William, bound by duty and responsibility, had built an impenetrable wall. Charles, with his throne and legacy, had chosen silence. Harry stared at the envelope, feeling it was evidence of his failure. That night he lay in bed, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. Meghan slept beside him, her breathing steady, but the distance between them felt wider than the ocean, separating him from England. He wanted to reach out to find the warmth of their early days, but he didn't dare. He feared she'd wake and look at him with the eyes of a stranger in their own home. In the darkness, Harry whispered to himself, "What did I do wrong?" But no one answered. Only the wind outside and the heavy beat of his heart, like a clock counting down to an end he couldn't see. Montecito's morning light usually brought a sense of renewal, but today it left Harry feeling exposed under the sun's glare. He sat at the dining table, an iPad displaying a new article from a British tabloid. Its headline, a dagger. Meghan Markle, linked to anti-royal conglomerate secrets behind her media empire. The words danced before his eyes, each sentence a bullet piercing his already fragile trust in their marriage. The article revealed that Global Vision, Meghan's primary business partner, had funded a series of articles and campaigns attacking the British royal family, calling them relics of an outdated era. Worse evidence suggested Meghan was fully aware, even participating in strategic meetings with the conglomerate before they left England. Harry felt his blood turn to ice. Through the glass door, he saw Meghan in the garden phone pressed to her ear, her smile radiant as if nothing were wrong. But that smile, once his guiding light, now felt alien. He stood gripping the iPad and strode into the garden with cold determination. "Meg!" He called, his voice low but sharp as a blade. Meghan turned, a flicker of surprise crossing her face at his expression. She ended her call, tucked the phone into her pocket, and crossed her arms. "What's wrong, Harry? You look like you've seen a ghost." "What's this?" Harry held up the iPad, the screen still glowing with the article. "Global Vision articles attacking my family. You knew about this from the start, didn't you?" Meghan's brow furrowed, but there was no panic in her eyes. She stepped closer, her voice eerily calm. "What are you talking about? It's just a tabloid story. You know how they twist things." "Don't lie," Harry shouted, his voice echoing through the garden, startling a few birds into flight. "They have emails, Meg. Emails between you and Global Vision's board. You met with them. You knew what they were doing. You let them smear my family while I gave up everything for you." Meghan froze, but only for a moment. Then she stepped forward, her eyes blazing like fire. "Your family," she shot back, her voice dripping with disdain. "Your family pushed us out of England, treated me like an outsider. Did you expect me to sit quietly and let them control my life? Global Vision was my chance. Our chance to build something bigger, stronger." "Bigger," Harry laughed bitterly, the sound laced with pain. "So that's why you're with me? To use me as a ticket to this world, to make me a part of your plan?" "Don't be dramatic, Harry," Meghan shouted, stepping so close he could see the sparks of anger in her eyes. "You think I need you to succeed. Without you, I'd still make it. But without me, you're just an empty name. A prince without a throne, forgotten by everyone." Her words were a blade severing the last thread tying Harry to her. He stepped back, his legs weak. "So that's the truth," he whispered, his voice breaking. "All your talk of love of us against the world. It was just a performance. You needed a story, and I was the perfect lead." Meghan opened her mouth to speak, but stopped. For a rare moment, her eyes flickered with regret, but it was swiftly masked by resolve. "If that's what you think," she said, her voice cold as ice, "then maybe we have nothing left to say." She turned, her curly hair swirling in the breeze, leaving Harry alone in the garden. His heart shattered, fragments falling to the dry earth. The word divorce crossed his mind, not as a threat, but as a sharp, inevitable reality. He looked at the iPad in his hand, its screen now dark, but the words still haunted him. Truth, it turned out, was more painful than any lie. Harry walked back into the house, his steps heavy as lead. He sank into a chair, staring at the now empty garden. In his mind, a question repeated a refrain without end. Was this love ever real, or just a dream I painted for myself? The sea breeze swept over the Montecito hill, carrying the salty chill of dawn. Harry stood alone at the summit, his shoes dusted with red earth, his thin jacket flapping in the wind. Before him stretched the vast ocean, shimmering under the rising sun, but his eyes were fixed on the horizon, where his homeland, England, lay thousands of miles away, shrouded in the mist of memory. He closed his eyes, imagining the domes of Kensington Palace, the tree-lined streets of London, and his mother Diana, smiling as she did in his childhood dreams. But reality yanked him back, cold and merciless. His marriage to Meghan was crumbling like a glass thrown to the ground, its sharp shards impossible to piece together. After their fight over Global Vision, they barely spoke. Meghan spent most of her time in her office on virtual meetings with partners, while Harry wandered the sprawling mansion, feeling like a ghost. Her final words, "If not for me, you'd just be an empty name," echoed in his mind, a verdict he couldn't erase. He pulled out his phone, the screen lighting up with an unsent email to William. "I was wrong, Will. I thought I could find freedom, but all I found was a void. If you still see me as your brother, please reply." He'd written it 3 days ago, but his finger couldn't press send. Fear not of rejection, but of silence, the confirmation that he had truly lost everything. Harry sat on a rock, head in his hands, letting the cold wind whip through his hair. In his mind, the voices rose again, a chorus of failure. "You chose wrong, Harry. You gave up your family, your title, for what, a wife who no longer sees you, a life that isn't yours." He wanted to scream to banish them, but they only grew louder. "Who are you if not a prince, a husband, a brother? You're nothing." He stood stepping closer to the cliff's edge, gazing at the waves crashing against the rocks below. A part of him wanted to keep walking, to let the ocean swallow him and end this pain. But then he thought of his mother Diana, who fought the world for what she believed in. "Mum wouldn't give up," he whispered, his voice trembling. "And neither will I." But where to go England was a locked door. William and Charles hadn't answered, his letters hadn't called, hadn't shown any sign they still saw him as family. Meghan, once his light, was now a distant figure, consumed by her ambitions and the spotlight. Harry felt trapped, caught between a past he couldn't return to and a future he couldn't shape. He pulled a small ring from his pocket, not his wedding band, but one his mother had worn, a gift she left him. He clutched it, feeling the cold metal in his palm. "If only someone, just one person, would forgive me," he whispered, unsure if he was speaking to William, Charles, Meghan, or himself. The wind grew stronger, carrying mist from the ocean, blurring the horizon. Harry stood there alone on the hill like a forgotten statue. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but in this moment he knew only that he had lost everything, and perhaps even himself.